If you have $20,000 sitting in a basic savings account right now, you aren't just a customer to your bank. You are a liability. Most people believe that a bank is a vault designed to protect their hard work. We are taught from childhood that the responsible thing to do is to stack our cash and watch the numbers go up on a digital screen. We feel safe when we see that balance. But there is a specific reason why your bank is quietly terrified of you keeping that exact amount of liquidity. It isn't because they want you to be poor. It is because $20,000 represents a very specific threshold of independence. It is the amount where a customer stops being a predictable source of interest and starts becoming a threat to the institution's structural stability. There is a clause buried in your account agreement that you likely scrolled past in seconds. It's a few lines of legalese that effectively gives the bank the right to stop being a bank the moment things get difficult. They don't want you to know about it, because if everyone understood the fragile math behind their safe deposit, the entire system would shift overnight. Let's look at the reality of that money. You think that $20,000 is yours. You think it's sitting in a tray with your name on it. It isn't. The moment you clicked deposit, that money stopped being your asset and became the bank's cheapest source of fuel, and they are desperate for you to keep it there, right up until the moment they aren't. We live in an era where the greatest risk isn't losing your money. It's believing you still own it. The average person walks into a bank feeling a sense of security. They see the marble floors, the heavy glass, and the professional attire. It's designed to project one thing: permanence. We are told that cash is king. We are told that a rainy day fund is the ultimate shield against the chaos of the world. And for most, $20,000 is that magic number. It's enough to cover 6 months of bills. It's a safety net. But here is the psychological trap. When you have $20,000 in a liquid account, you feel a false sense of control. You stop looking for ways to grow. You stop questioning the system because you feel you've already won a small piece of it. The bank loves this version of you. The version that is comfortable. The problem starts when you realize that your comfort is actually their profit margin. In the modern banking system, your $20,000 is leveraged. Because of fractional reserve requirements, or in some cases the total removal of them, your deposit allows the bank to lend out 10 times that amount to other people. Your safety is the engine for someone else's debt. But there is a growing fear within these institutions. They fear the customer who understands the math of the exit. They fear the person who realizes that $20,000 is the exact amount where the opportunity cost of holding cash begins to bleed you dry. Inflation is the silent thief, but the bank is the one holding the door open for him. If you keep that money in a standard account, you are effectively paying the bank for the privilege of letting them use your capital. You are losing 3, 4, or 5% of your purchasing power every year, while they earn multiples of that by lending your money back to your neighbors at high interest. This is the hidden tax on the responsible. The system is built on the assumption that you will remain passive. It relies on the fact that you will prioritize the feeling of security over the reality of math. But what happens when you decide to move that money? What happens when you try to take your safety elsewhere? That's when the account clause comes into play. Most people assume that if they go to the teller and ask for their $20,000, they will get it. Try it. In many jurisdictions, banks have the legal right to delay withdrawals or require advanced notice for large amounts of cash, but that's just the surface. The real clause, the one that keeps regulators awake at night, is the bail-in provision. Following the financial crises of the last 2 decades, laws were quietly shifted. In a systemic collapse, your deposits are no longer just your money. You are considered an unsecured creditor of the bank. If the bank fails, they don't have to give you your cash back first. They can legally convert your hard-earned savings into equity in a failing bank. They turn your $20,000 into a handful of worthless stock to save themselves. You aren't a depositor, you are a backstop. The math of the system is designed to keep you in a state of perpetual almost. You have almost enough to be safe. You have almost enough to retire. You have almost enough to feel free. But as long as that money stays within their walls, it isn't yours. It belongs to the mechanics of the market. Think about the way we are conditioned to view debt versus savings. We are told debt is a burden, and savings are a blessing. But to a bank, your debt is an asset. Your savings are a liability. They owe you that money. And banks hate owing people things. This is why they offer you perks for keeping high balances. They give you a slightly better interest rate, maybe 0.1% more, to keep you from moving your capital to a place where it could actually work for you. They are buying your compliance for pennies. Let's look at the uncomfortable truth of the numbers. If you have $20,000 and inflation is at 5%, you are losing $1,000 of value every single year. You aren't saving anything. You are watching your life force evaporate in real time. In 10 years, that safety net will be half the size it is today, even if the number on the screen stays the same. The bank knows this. They rely on the money illusion. Humans are biologically wired to value the numerical count of something rather than its actual power. If you have 20,000 units, you feel wealthy, even if those units buy half as many groceries as they did last year. The bank uses this psychological blind spot to keep their reserves full. They fear the customer who breaks the illusion. They fear the person who looks at $20,000 and sees a decaying asset. Because when that person moves their money into hard assets or into investments that the bank cannot control or leverage, the bank loses its power. The system is a giant game of musical chairs. As long as the music plays, everyone is happy. But the chairs are made of your deposits. We see the social media influencers telling you to save your first 20K. They tell you it's the milestone of success, and in a way, they are right. It is a milestone, but it's also the point where the path forks. One path leads to the cash trap. This is where you become a career saver. You keep stacking cash, feeling more and more secure as the world becomes more expensive. You become the perfect bank customer, loyal, quiet, and slowly losing. The other path is the one the bank fears. It's the path where you realize that $20,000 is not a destination, it is a tool. The bank wants you to think of money as a trophy to be guarded, but the wealthy view money as a soldier to be sent into battle. There is a fundamental difference between having money and having wealth. Money is what the bank uses to keep you in your place. Wealth is what you build when you stop letting the bank use your money. Why do they fear the withdrawal? Because the banking system is built on a foundation of trust, not a foundation of cash. There is not enough physical currency in existence to cover even a fraction of the digital balances we see on our phones. If only 10% of customers decided they wanted their $20,000 in physical bills tomorrow, the doors would lock. The account clause would be triggered. The temporary suspension of services signs would go up. Your safety is entirely dependent on your neighbor not asking for theirs at the same time. We are told that the government guarantees our deposits. We are told we are insured, but insurance is only as good as the insurer. In a true crisis, the insurance funds held by regulators represent a tiny percentage of the total deposits in the system. It is a psychological blanket, not a structural one. It exists to prevent the one thing the bank fears most: a loss of faith. Because when you lose faith, you take your $20,000 out. And when you take it out, you realize it was never really there to begin with. It was just a promise. And promises are the first things to break when the math stops working. The psychological difficulty of this realization is immense. It is terrifying to admit that the safe path is actually a gamble. It is hard to accept that the institution you've trusted since you opened your first savings account is playing a different game than you are. We are raised with the scarcity mindset. We hold on to what we have because we are afraid of not having enough. The bank exploits this fear. They know that if they can make you afraid enough of the market or risk, you will stay in the safety of their vault. They sell you security, but they deliver stagnation. Most people fail to escape this trap even when they understand the mechanics. Why? Because it requires a shift in identity. To stop being a saver and start being an owner means taking responsibility for your own survival. It means admitting that no one, not the bank, not the government, and not the experts, is coming to save you. It's easier to look at the app, see the $20,000, and go back to sleep. It's easier to believe the clause in the contract will never be used. It's easier to ignore the fact that the bank is terrified of you leaving, because if you leave, you might actually become free. The system doesn't want you free. It wants you liquid. It wants you available. It wants your $20,000 sitting exactly where it is, quietly losing value, quietly funding their expansion, and quietly waiting for a crisis that will turn your safety into their solvency. So you have to ask yourself, is that money in your account a shield, or is it just a weight that keeps you tied to a sinking ship? The bank knows the answer. The question is, when will you? The next time you look at your balance, don't just see a number. See the leverage, see the inflation, see the clauses you didn't read, and then ask yourself, if the bank is so afraid of me taking this money out, why am I so afraid of what happens if I do? The most dangerous thing you can do with $20,000 is nothing, and that is exactly what they are betting you will do. How much is your security actually costing you?